Welcome to AI in the Sky. This is a prototype episode that I'm going live with my friend Marc Angelos to talk about AI because in a world where a lot of people are seeing this AI thing and it's looming and everybody including me are talking about the AI is written on the wall. It seems kind of ominous and a lot of people act like Chicken Little, like it's like falling from the sky and it's like knocking out jobs and all that kind of stuff. So even this is kind of a beta episode where Mark and I are going to explore talking about AI topics. What's in the news with AI? Contextualize it for marketing, how it impacts us, in order to make it less ominous, in order to make it approachable, and talk about how the things that are happening with AI can impact marketers in good ways and maybe in some bad ways. And we can give some caveats to what to avoid or what to go towards. This is a new format for me. I know, Mark, you've done a lot of live streaming with our friend Joe Pulizzi, but I'm excited for this to really experiment here and talk about some things that are going on with AI. We certainly know that there's so much happening every single week. We will never have stuff to run out of if we do this weekly.
It's true.
So thanks for joining me, Mark.
Yeah, pleasure's
And
mine. Honestly, I think it's great, Dan, because the whole concept of when something is so new, there's no place to go to learn it. So, as you were saying earlier, throwing stuff on the wall, seeing what sticks, learning from each other. That's really the most ideal way to do this.
so hang tight. This is episode 1 of AI in the Sky. Might change the name, might change the format, but we're going to experiment here and do it for it. We're going to build this little show in public and talk about the modifications along the way. Today, I have a number of different topics we're going to be talking about, from AI shifting in business, the rise of AI agencies, writing books with AI, and what the current state of AI video is and what we can learn from it. But let's dive into that first topic. Like, I noticed Anthropic put out some news that Claude 3 has come and it's focused on enterprise needs, which I'm like, huh. Like, it seems like AI agencies, including Microsoft making Copilot and all that kind of stuff, everything's starting to shift for business. It's almost like last year everybody was like AI, bam, and it was like this general use case. They pulled up the veil and it was kind of like, here it is. But it seems like this year things are starting to tighten up to be sold, even
Yeah,
from the general companies like OpenAI and Anthropic now.
it's almost like they smell money, Dan. Yeah, I think that the thing is these enterprise companies, they were taken off guard, in my opinion, as how quickly this thing advanced. The creators jumped on this right away. You saw a lot of the small companies take advantage from efficiency of cost savings to workflow, and all of a sudden, those enterprise guys are like, "Whoa, like there's actual value here. How do we integrate this? What do we actually do instead of just saying this is a cool tech? Where do we put it inside our systems?"
I know everybody I talked to, and I think we said this in the podcast that we recorded a few weeks ago, but publishes on this Friday on the AI driven marketer, uh, that every company's talking about this.
Yeah, but you,
Every Fortune 500 company is talking about the impact of AI and where it should be placed right now.
but you,
I know
two
every friend I talk to across almost every industry, from dog food formulation to accounting, and of course, marketing is it's all over, is talking about how AI is going to do stuff.
Two thoughts though here, Dan. Number one, everyone is talking about it, but not every one of those companies is actually doing anything right now. Believe it or not, mega giant companies still have not even begun to move. Secondly, who exactly inside those big enterprise corporates owns the AI silo? So this is a conversation I've had with the guys over at the AI Marketing Institute. There's is this a marketing thing? Is it a technology thing? Is this fall under the business revenue? Like there's there's no clear cut owner right now of the AI initiative in these giant mega corporations.
I just recorded an episode with guest Courtney Baker about this one topic. The title of the episode is "Who Owns AI?" I
There you
want to
go.
hear. Give me your take on who should own AI, and then I'll give you mine. That I came to a conclusion after that long episode where we kind of explored that
All right.
topic.
The caveat is I come out of 30 years of finance, Wall Street. Like I'm a corporate drone back in the day. I run my own company now, but so I'm a little biased in my view is my point, which maybe is good for the show. But in my opinion, I think it should be owned by marketing, right? That's where it belongs.
Interesting.
It's it's where you can get the most efficiency. It's where you're going to build connection with the customer. That is the functional purpose of any marketing department. AI is just built for that. In real life, it's got so much hair on it right now. the IT guys, like there's an IT piece in here required to
Yep.
institute this inside marketing. They're not going to want to get involved because it's a whole new thing.
Yep.
Who's the person that runs it? It's almost like blockchain. Like there's no expert in it yet. And so marketing will want it. Will they be able to pull that off? This is the same argument about who has a say at the executive table when big decisions are being made. And is marketing being left out of that conversation? I'm not saying they will be, but I think that initially it's going to be an argument until companies start to shift marketplaces. And then all of a sudden, a marketing will end up owning it. But that'll take a few years.
Here's my take. You'll have to
Please.
see how you react to it now. But after talking about it, I'm like, dude, this thing's going to impact everything from services to accounting, fulfillment, manufacturing. It's going to be so widespread from the bottom to the top that I don't see it going anywhere else than the CEO being the one to really push it forward as a thing company wide. And I think it has to be owned by everybody. But because it's got to be owned by everybody, then the CEO has to be the one to really lead the charge. I think marketing should be the model department to be the model for championing it, working with IT, because I mean, eventually we're gonna have to figure out how AI works cross organization. I mean, because otherwise, like, you don't really get the real benefits of AI. The competitive edge of AI comes with data, but then you got to work with your CIO in order to tap into the data, right?
I want to
Beyond what marketing has access to.
I want to just parse that word AI initials acronym. It's not just one thing, Dan. Like I think on the creator side of things, people are using AI for creative, generative. They're innovating it. On the corporate side, AI is not being used to innovate anything yet. It's going to be used to save money, efficiency play,
Yep.
building internal workflows. How do we take it? You were talking earlier. How do we take a 16, day process into 8 or whatever it is?
Yep.
That's not the same thing. And so the executive has to lay the land out and say, this is where we're headed. I agree with that. The chief executive should be the driver. But in real life, there's going to be a new person that will emerge inside these firms that's somewhere between technology and marketing. So MarTech was always a thing, but now it's like not just knowing tools, it's understanding token parsings. Like this is pretty technical. So
Yeah, I think there's room for a chief AI officer. I think it's that big of a differentiated, which is why we went from like head of tech, like CTO to CIO. There was enough of a different thing going on with data that they needed someone to just to think about the data. I think the same thing will happen with AI.
I can see that.
In big companies, at first it'll fall under the director of technology if you're a mid-sized company, as the one kind of spearheading it. And they're not spearheading, they're really facilitating it across departments, because every department will have their own tools. Like, how do you take into account that the HR tool has AI incorporated into it, but so does the HubSpot, right? They have their own AI systems, but there will be cross-departmental AI systems too, and somebody has to facilitate that.
Right. So you're going to get into this whole argument over personality. There was always this whole conversation around, was the person running the firm a product person or a salesperson, right? Were they a people person or were they a technology person? This is an interesting dynamic now is going to occur inside of marketing / tech, because they're two different types of people generally that now you're marrying skill sets.
So this is a good conversation, because I think if you're a marketer listening to this, especially if you're a marketing leader, you have to know that this is going to impact the whole company. And if you're the person that's already like innovating and pushing this forward, start thinking about how you can lead the cause for your whole department. And I think it has to be a mixture of top down and bottom up. Because if you don't go bottom up, you're going to miss out, and you might end up orchestrating things top down, and then you alienate a few people on your team. So it becomes a huge collaboration. But if you can model it, you will set the tone for the whole organization, because marketing and sales specifically are like really running with this thing. And there's no roadmap for how to implement this. There's no, like, we've kind of know what digital transformation looks like. No one really knows what AI transformation looks like yet. But since most of the use cases are coming from marketing gets to be the playbook that gets to write it for the rest of the organization.
I'm going to put a practical handle on your tips, Dan, which I agree with 100%. What that means for the marketers who are listening to this, who really want to become more of a resource, is to do exactly that, to be able to bring insight to the company itself, like update people on what you understand about potential use cases, how you think it could be deployed inside the firm. When you share these thoughts now, whether or not your firm deploys that, you become that person, that internal thought leader in that regard. And later, that's important for things like career.
So moving on to our next topic, I wanted to talk about the rise of AI agencies. This is something you introduced me to just a few weeks ago. You're like, have you heard of Liam Otley? And I was like, no. So I Googled him, watched a number of his videos. Recently, I saw a video. He did this like 60-minute long presentation on like the 5 types of AI businesses, of which he kind of rolls up AI consulting, AI education, AI agency, and AI SaaS and AI freelancing. The reason why I wanted to bring it up into this show, because I think all of those are going to touch marketers. And I think even a lot of marketers that are listening to this now could be rolled like all freelancing, agency, education, consulting, and working with SaaS is something that a lot of marketers do. These things will start to bleed over into your work, whether you're currently just a normal consultant or freelancer, product marketing, whatever you're currently doing, it's going to start bleeding over. So I think it's time to start paying attention to these things, not only because it's going to bleed over, but a lot of us might make the jump over from being a marketing consultant to being a AI marketing consultant. I think that's
Yeah.
just the thing that's going to happen.
For some context on this, what used to be the social media marketing agency back in the day, the SMMAs, we all know that. This is the new SMMA. There's now it's a facility, really is what it is, that goes into larger organizations. And instead of just helping people with their social, you're actually helping them with their workflows, with their interfaces with the customer,
Yep.
and building projects that help them get stuff done quickly inside of their marketing teams. So it's consultancy.
One of the things I've noticed about these, because I'm actually like fiddling around with this now. Like I actually have a client that I'm doing, I guess you could say I'm doing AI freelancing for. I'm actually working with them to build a custom GPT. And I'm hoping to document that and publish about it later. But right now, since in the process, I won't say who it is or what we're building. Um, I'm finding now that I'm in the process of it that it feels mostly like what marketing ops was.
Mhm. How
Like I'm
so?
having to
Define that.
like define like what do we want to have happen here? What are the inputs? What are the steps that I have to essentially automate with AI in order to achieve an outcome to take what used to take 2 weeks for them down to 1 day, right? Um, and I'm wondering, I'm like, if you're going to start leaning into AI, it's almost like if you have a marketing ops background, you're going to be able to excel faster because I think a lot of the thinking is similar. What do you think?
That's interesting. I could see that. So I don't come out of marketing ops, but I totally agree with you. There's 3 basic applications, at least at this early stage, of what these AI agencies are doing. Number 1 is the chatbot. They are creating an interface very simply. I mean, it's a couple $100 for a firm to build this, and now you have a whole client servicing division, if you will, on your website. And that's really more from the business model standpoint of these agencies. That is their lead hook,
Yep.
right? A cheap, low-cost way to get involved. The second thing is then AI workflows. Once they are in the conversation with these prospects, these bigger firms, the conversation evolves into what do you guys do normally for your clientele? How can we make your process more efficient? And then the third thing, that's hopefully from the business model perspective, leading to custom AI build-outs like you're already doing, Dan. You're ahead of the curve here. How do we build you a custom GPT so that the content writing sounds like your firm's voice, or et cetera? But those 3 steps are basically where we are right now for these AI agencies.
If you're in marketing right now and you're learning about these things, I feel like you really need to be studying these things. I mean, obviously, I've
Yeah.
gone all into this thing. So I'm like, this is going to take over. But more and more, as I'm working on this project for this client, I'm taking hard thinking work. I'm not. I'm working with another consultant. They consult other businesses, and what I'm doing is automating what used to take someone. Not it's not a machine a step that you could have used with the machine before. It's specifically AI centric because it's doing thinking that a human used to do for planning. And I wish I could get into more specifics, but I'm like, man, this is coming. If it can start doing thinking stuff, it's
But it
not just an
is.
automation tool. It's not just IA, intelligent automation, which there's tons of that going on. And that's amazing. Like it's starting to dip into thinking work.
Creativity.
Not all of it, but creative thinking, storytelling type work, which was something humans used to do. So
But Dan, if you look at it, people always expected artificial intelligence to take the low labor job, the ditch digger type stuff, and not be able to touch human creativity. And ironically, it started at the top. Creative writing was the first thing it whacked out. Now we're into video, text to video. That's outrageous.
yeah, which kind of comes into this next topic I want to talk about, and we might swing back to the AI agency, but I found an app this morning. It was part of an
Just
AI
one?
newsletter I was reading, and it was just so intriguing that I had to take a swing at it. The value proposition of this app, and I'll just shout it out here. It's called inkflow.io. Is it can generate a 20,000 word book in just a few clicks. So I'm like, okay, but I'm curious now. I'm like, what can this actually do? So I go through the website, and I'm looking at the website right now. In fact, can I share this? Let's
Yeah.
see. Screen share.
I got strong opinions on this. You're going to love me for this one.
Let's take a look at this thing. So this is Inkflow. Generates 20,000 words a book in just a few clicks. Enter your book title, select your language, select your generation model, and boom, out comes a .x file with 20,000 words in it. I was like, okay, I see where this is going. And if I went through the frequently asked questions, and one of them I was like, yeah, but can you lay out your chapters? And no, you're literally prompting it with the title. So it's really not a title. It's like, you think of it as like a one sentence prompt for a whole 20,000 word book. I'm like, it cost $100. And of course you have to put in your own API key from OpenAI, which means you have to pay OpenAI separately for the tokens you're paying for. I actually don't know how much it costs, but I've already generated a book with it because I went and paid the $100. I'm like, okay, you got me.
Right.
I'll give you $100 but I'm not here to generate books. Obviously, I'm not going to be uploading these to Amazon. I'm here to learn what's possible when someone's written a script of some kind to prompt AI to write a full book. So this is $100 lesson for me. Now I'm going to generate a bunch of books. Before I reveal the results of this thing and what I'm trying to learn from it, what's your initial reaction?
I'm expecting Sanchez to spit out a book a week now is what I'm expecting. But anyway, my reaction is this. Are you familiar with the term content shock? Have you heard this? This is basically the reference to now AI makes it so easy to push button post content on social that you're overloaded with crap content on LinkedIn, which we both know is the case.
Yep.
So there's three things. This is all my opinion now. There's three things that are going to become more and more important in an AI world, and it relates to books in a second. Number one, people want to know experiences, your experiences, Dan, like what you did and how you lived and what you just said before, marketing ops. That's of real value to a guy like me who doesn't come from that. So experiences are going to matter more. Your experience. Number two is having a strong opinion. Like I can get all the factoids I want from Google or, ChatGPT. I want to know from, again, your experience, what's your opinion? And number three, so that's going to be strong opinions. The ability to tell stories, right? That never went away. Persuasive storytelling. A guy gets up there or a girl and just you're in the palm of their hand in a minute. That's a skill. That becomes relevant and I don't know that AI can do those three things yet. Because once you know intellectually this thing isn't a real person, it doesn't matter how persuasive or well written that story was.
Yep.
So the reason I think that matters for books, we're going to get content shock in the book world. There's going to be 1,000 books a week that no one's going to care about. And if you have nothing of importance to say, you'll be able to say it faster and easier now. So, but the important thing is folks who really bring insight, that's going to launch them to the forefront. The ability to get over the hump of yourself. Who wants to sit down and write this thing? Hormozi's best-selling author right now. If you listen to him, he writes for 6 hours every morning before he does anything else, and does that for 2 years. That goes away if you've got AI to help you, but you got to have the internal something valuable to share.
So I bit the bullet and bought it, and then I had a couple of meetings this morning before this thing because I barely threw in one prompt, and luckily, like writing a title for a book isn't that hard. So I put generate, takes about 15 minutes. It spit out the book to me. In fact, let me share my screen for those.
Was the prompt write me a book about marketing?
No,
I'm kidding.
I don't know. I do want to share my screen. So I think it's fun. It's fun to look at this doc, even though you're going to see my desktop with all my crazy icons going on. But
we're building in public, Dan, right?
Let's build it. Let's do it.
This is what
Here's the Word doc. The title: The Practical Guide to DIY Home Video Studios, a topic I know well. How to Build Yours in 5 Days. You got to pick between 3 to 6 chapters, and I picked 5, and I'm like, well, there's some guidance for it. It didn't go off that at all.
So
I'm
two
just,
things.
again, I'm trying to prompt it somewhat with the title. And this is what it gave me. It almost gave me, here's chapter 1, Introduction to DIY Home Video Studios. Overview of the importance of having a home video studio. I have a feeling that this is a consistent thing. Like every time you give it a thing, it's going to be an overview of the importance of insert topic. And that's the prompt that generates this section. And then it gave me a numbered list.
So unfortunately, I can't see your screen, Dan. It didn't
Oh, you
broadcast.
can't see it?
No, but however, your recap was very nice. I can understand.
How do
That's
I
where
get
I
that on
think you're
here?
using this thing, or we should be using this thing if you're an author, research tool, right?
Oh,
Where all of a sudden it becomes, here's the way for you to think about the thing you want to write about, start talking about, the importance of whatever. So, and that's, again, you overlay that research AI component with the experiential life thing that you bring.
I'm used to clicking the share button and then it going live, but I have to click this
There
extra
you
thing.
go.
So
Now I can see it.
now you can see this bad boy where it's just a Word doc and you can see the formatting's like it goes straight from like an overview to being like a numbered list. It's not even
Oh,
formatted like a numbered list, so I have to actually like go in here and take them off one at a time. And this is actually, most of the book runs like this. It's like subsection numbered list, subsection numbered list. But now, and this is interesting. So it
it's an
changed the
outline.
formatting. Day 1, day 2. What did we change to? Introduction to the 5-day building plan, which is a whole chapter later in this book. Chapter 2, planning your DIY home video studio. And I'm like, this
I,
is a horrible book. There's sections in here where it's talking about drywall, but it says nothing about why you do drywall. I'm like, because it's you would do drywall for like acoustics, for soundproofing, but it
you,
doesn't. I'm trying to get back to our, here we go.
yeah.
uh Trying to get back to it so that you can, soundproof a room for a studio. It's a relevant topic, but it kind of went off the mark in multiple places like that. And it's just not a very good book.
But that's
But
what your
part of me is
experience.
interested to be like, well, now that I kind of have an idea of what it produces, what could I possibly feed it to get a reasonably C minus kind of grade book? Because I think there are some things that we, even with only the simplicity of a title, and hopefully they launch the ability to set the chapters too, because then you could drive it a little further.
Right.
It can do okay. It can
I,
do okay.
I'm going to give some context on this. This is great context. They're doing this exact thing already in the fitness space. So I will literally show ChatGPT or Turbo, whatever. I want this body, and it's an athlete, someone else. It's going to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger from the 1970s. And how do I turn this into that? And here's the equipment I have, and you show what you got in your house, the weight bench in the basement, and it will go through and make a plan for you day by day, and it'll get you there in 4 years or whatever. This is the same concept where it's going to map out for you. You want to get to this book, and this is what you want the book to be, and here's the day by day. But then you need to overlay it with, in the case of the fitness guys, they're doing, here's the medical data. Here's my body mass readings index from the doctor. So you got to pump your own data into this overlay to get there. I think you're going to get to that with the book thing, Dan. You're going to say, here's the plan to make the coolest ass marketing book of all time. And then Sanchez has to pump in your experiences from having been marketing ops or whatever. And
Yeah.
that will get you there. But it's work.
I wish I could connect it to like all the transcripts from a podcast. I wish it could like just read all the blog posts on my site where I've written extensively about how to build home video studios and have stories and all kinds of things in there. Or if I could just feed it my whole course
Yep.
where I talk about home video studios, because then the content would be freaking, like, it would be so much closer. It would go from F right now, it's a solid F, to maybe B minus if it
Mhm.
was able to pull from my experience, which is how I usually write blog posts with AI right now. I actually I outline the blog post with the headers and I think through what's in each section. And then I just speak through it. I even give the intro and I write the blog post, but I just talk and record myself. And then I feed it the bullet points, which are the headers, and I feed it the transcript of me talking through it. And
I
then it
think
writes
I
pretty
think we're
well.
going that way though. I think that's where it ends up. Like right now, it is very clunky to get your personal information, or in your case, the course and
Yeah.
everything you've ever written on LinkedIn into this thing. But that's coming, because that is exactly what people would want. If I could funnel my entire life into a book. My kid is 15 and he said to me once, Dad, you know a lot about business. Could you just write it all down so I don't have to bother learning it all? True story. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I get to that on Thursday. But
We're
like,
not
that's
far
where
off.
it's headed for your book.
I tried to do it with the custom GPT because you can like feed in documents or knowledge for it to go off of. But it's like I found out that knowledge is really as an extension that you have to tell it to reference. You have to be like, go search this document, read it, and then do this with it. You can't just be like, here's a bunch of information, use it to do something fairly large and abstract. That it can't do well yet. I'm sure someone could make an app to do it well, just no one has done that yet. But
Here's the interesting
I think we're only a year away from taking what I currently just experienced with this bookmaker, uploading my entire podcast, and then it coming out with a reasonable book. I think we're only
yes.
someone's working on this right now. I mean, this guy's already working on it, or whoever published this tool. I don't even know who made it yet, but
The issue
this
is
is available to do now.
there's the technical side of it, which you're right, I agree. But then there's another element here. Like a lot of knowledge is opinion. If I say to you that men and women are different, then the rest of that sentence is going to be very wildly different depending on who you speak to.
Yep.
And so that's where the book's interesting angles come from. I was a big fan when I was younger of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he poops all over the school system. And I was like, oh, I like this. But meanwhile, people who are in the school system would say this thing is completely off the mark. My point is, there's an opinion factor in books that people buy.
Yep. I think a lot of businesses would do well to write a book. I'm like actually I think it's a wonderful marketing plan to spend time writing a book and then spend like a whole year on repurposing it.
So now you're
Tools
getting to
like
the
this will come out to make it possible for your CEO or your founder to write books on really good topics based on real stories and real data and real information that are even if you have to spin it to a editor, a ghostwriter afterwards to finalize it and make it look good, like it's going to be able to get it most of the way there soon.
So you'll love this. I do executive thought leadership pieces for CEOs in finance. That's where I come from, and a lot of them will. I've had this sentence said to me several times: "Make me sound like Ray Dalio." And so what you're describing right now actually makes that potentially possible, right?
Yes, we know they weren't writing their books before. I
Right.
mean, that was the dirty little secret I found out about HBR, right? It's never written by the byline or hardly ever. If it's a guest, maybe, but
Nope.
like they're all written by professional writers that interview the subject matter expert that doesn't know how to write. They think they do, but they only know how to write academic ease, that nobody
Yes.
can understand. But then
But
the writer does the hard work of synthesizing it down into something like approachable, and then they give it back to the subject matter expert, and they're like, "Yeah, that's what I said." And the writer's like,
it's no different when Walter Isaacson or whoever they do these biographies of these
"Yeah,
famous entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs. But Steve didn't write the book. It was a writer who wrote the book.
yeah, ton of
Yeah.
work." The thing is, AI is getting better at understanding the context of it and actually producing that. I know I'm using AI to write more and more, but I'm also like a C plus writer. I'm not an A plus writer,
I
and
want to dig into
it
that for
takes
a
me
second,
A to
Dan. From the perspective of the marketing world right now, if you're a marketer and how can you actually help your executive C-suite leverage this potentially? Like, what would we do? Would we sit down at the table and just say, we're gonna do a biography of why this company exists, or we're going to walk through the founder's principles of the mission of this firm, or do we do like they'll probably attack case studies and client use cases is the go-to is my guess.
Yep.
What would you recommend? What do you think would be the most effective way if you could funnel all that information into this book machine and make the cool book? How should a marketing team use it?
Honestly, this is what I'm doing with the podcast right now.
Great.
Even with this podcast, I am like my end goal for the podcast at the end of the year, since the goal is to master AI in 2024 for myself, is to finish with a book, even if
Right.
it's like version 1.0, because obviously AI is going to change every year. So what it means to be an AI driven marketer will change over time. But I'd like to write somewhat of a roadmap based on all the lessons learned from the podcast. So how I'm planning on doing it, which is what I think good marketing teams will do, even with their founders, is use a podcast to pull out this stuff, because it's so hard to sit
Mm.
down to a blank paper and be like, well, how do I organize this thought? Shoot, I even sat down with my friend who's a chiropractor yesterday, and he wants to make course content. Well, I'm like, just do the journalism thing: who, what, when, where, why, how. And I'm like asking him questions about his basic thing that he wants everybody to go through. And I pulled out the course content out of him. I'm like, here's the videos. One's on what, one's on why, one's 3 videos on how, and then one on when and where. I'm like, there's your mini
Yeah.
course. But it's just drawing it out of people, sitting down. And that's what a podcast is great for, because you can literally like use content marketing to build your way there, and then use AI to take all the raw content, the episode footage, to synthesize a lot of it, turn it into the rough drafts of the book,
Right.
and then use a writer to finish it. And you go through it and start doing the work of adding, oh, it would be nice if we had some stats here, it'd be nice if we had a little story here, it'd be nice if we had an extra illustration here. But AI will be able to take the transcripts and outline it, and I'm hoping the tools become a little bit better, instead of just using a custom GPT to do it in the future. Like 10 months from now, I'm sure this book technology will be farther along, you'll be able to feed it more. So you can take a year to build your way up to the book, and talk about the journey of building the book and building the next way of revolutionizing the industry in that way you want to with your company. Publish the book, and then spend the whole next year repurposing that while you're on kind of like revamping up for your next big thing.
The only danger I foresee would be making a book just for the sake of having a book. The companies all want a book. I think that what you're describing is very strategic and very goal, or like, where you're going with that and why you're doing this. What you said, I'm doing this with the podcast, actually. That's good, Dan, because you think strategically. And I think that the marketer who thinks that way will leverage this tool properly. My fear is a lot of these bigger companies are just going to bang on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there will always be people who do it well and people who don't do it so well. Yet
But
that shouldn't stop people from thinking about it as a strategy or a tactic to publish thought leadership and create a lot of really cool content on the way there, and then to repurpose
yeah,
afterwards.
I'm reminded of Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. But that would be very, like, this is an effective tool, almost what podcasts brought back in the day, books could potentially bring to the marketing team.
So that's the hypothesis. I figured I'd invest $100 today in whatever I pay in API credits. And at least I'm like, at least it'll be something freaking interesting to talk about on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Another
No,
experiment to be like, hey, tried this, it failed, or kind of worked here. Now you don't have to waste your money on an AI bookmaking tool.
I think it's cool. And books
But
are
I
being,
expect I'll learn something in the process of spitting out like 15 crappy books. maybe each one gets a little bit better, but we'll see.
what's funny though, closing comment, everyone understands how AI is destroying video and the whole Hollywood business model. No one's really looking at the book world because it's doing the same thing there.
Oh yeah. It's doing it faster there, but I haven't even taken a look at like the audio section yet or the ebook library, but I'm sure the ebook library is blowing up with a bunch of crappy books right now.
I'm sure.
I need to go look. Maybe when we do this again, I'll bring up the stat to see what I can dig up on that. Last thing to talk about is the current state of AI video.
Yeah. Segue, baby.
The current
AI
state
video.
of AI video.
I mean, Sora from OpenAI 2 weeks ago, it's unbelievable the advances that have happened. Way faster than anybody expected. And
Yep.
honestly, that's been the missing link in the marketing world, in my opinion. Writing was always a marketing strength.
Yeah.
Video required production, it required money, it required budget that people frankly didn't want to put towards it. So that's why that whole agency world existed, because of that. You go back to like Mad Men in the 50s and 60s. You can now do this out of any company's back room, janitor closet.
It's so funny because Sora, that announcement only came out a few weeks ago, but it already seems like old news, even though it was like literally revolutionary. Everybody was like, oh,
Yeah.
I thought this was at least a year away. I know I saw when Midjourney launched Midjourney 6 at the end of December. I was like, whoa. And then of course I thought like, I wonder when video will be this good. And I was thinking, I bet a year from now we'll see Midjourney 6 level video. No,
Yeah, dude,
1
that
month.
rocked the world.
1 month or 2 months
Runway,
ago.
Midjourney, all those guys would take it. Did you see the video of the woolly mammoths, whatever, walking through the snow? It's like, it's unbelievable that's from words.
Yeah. Almost all the shots, or at least all the ones they're demoing right now. And of course you can play with it like in a limited way and see like what else it makes. But I'm like, it's good. And of course it has its oddities and weird stuff, but I'm like, And we're not on version 1.0 either. It's obviously been tweaked a lot over the years, but like a lot of people are making like the Will Smith scenario of the spaghetti
Yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah.
comparing it to now. And that was only a 1 year difference. You're like, yeah, this is exponential improvement. If it got from the Will Smith video of him, a really weird and awkward zombie looking version of him and his fingers look like the spaghetti itself.
6 fingers.
Eating spaghetti to like the craziness we have now, I'm like, okay, what'll it be like a year from now? Like this is just nuts. Then
Somebody,
this is where people start getting scared of AI, but I'm like, well, here it is. Let's learn how to maximize it.
I
What
forget
it
what.
tells me is that AI is progressing faster than everyone expects. Even the people that are reading up on the news every single week are like, oh shoot, this is nuts.
So two things. I don't want to get into the whole controversy of it yet because of the whole
Yeah.
politics. But I do think that there is something to be said for relationship building. That is the whole purpose of marketing. And this video builds relationship quicker. These are all facts, have nothing to do with AI. So how are you strategically using this AI tool now, which is unbelievable, to build relationship? I think this because the tech has moved so fast, the strategy is lagging. People, there was a pizza commercial made a year ago. Do you remember this was a video? It was a text to video pizza commercial for a fake pizzeria. It was hilarious because the people had 6 fingers and you couldn't tell the difference between the cheese and the
Yeah. Yep.
person. That's going to become believable enough already. It is where you can actually deploy stuff now. This isn't just cool. It's coming. It's here. So what's the strategy? Nobody knows. Hence this value of this program. I think that these companies are going to have to sit down and say, okay, do we really want a relationship or are we really just trying to sell stuff? Transactional is very different from relational. And you can take it any way you want. There's a lot of, there's a whole conversation around that. But I think this text to video is going to be the main thrust for most marketing teams in the next year. Why wouldn't it be? It's simple, it's cheap, and it's the most effective medium.
And you've said it before, which is part of the reason why I was interested in doing this live stream, right? Is the people who do live now will have an advantage because AI can't do stuff live. And it won't be
No,
able to, at least for a little bit. But maybe we'll be shocked by that in like July. It's like, and now we can do live and respond to the comments. You're like, what? I don't know.
you
Who
know
knows
what
what's
though?
coming?
You know how social media today, Dan, is it's a little bit grungy and people like that. They don't want the Hollywood polish.
Yep.
That's the same. The AI has brought that Hollywood polish, but the live gets it back to people ums and ahs and stuttering and thinking for a second. Humans want that. They don't they don't want when they're getting information or if they want to understand a company and they're thinking of a big purchase or you're about to do a deal with someone. You want to know the real them. So if there's an AI Hey Gen avatar of Dan and Mark talking with 11 Labs voices and it's not really us, but it's the same conversation, it's not going to be as effective.
No, I I even find my own habits with YouTube, and YouTube's been inundated with B-roll videos.
Mhm.
And you don't even know if the voice behind the B-roll is real. But I go, I do what most people do. Every time I'm like researching something, like a couple years ago, I'm a new homeowner a few years ago, and I'm trying to figure out how to take care of my lawn. It's Bermuda grass. I don't know anything about it, so I'm researching it. But I instantly stay away from the videos where I can't see a face of a person who's actually done the research on the lawnmowers. There's
Right.
plenty of videos being like, "Oh, here's the review on this lawnmower." It's all B-roll, it's all photos, it's all done by somebody that I can tell actually touch the lawnmower. So what
This
do?
is
I go look for the YouTubers who are like specialized in lawn care, and it's literally being like, "Well, I bought 2 lawnmowers." It could be an iPhone video. I don't care. Give me an honest guy giving an honest review from the middle of nowhere, Texas, doing a video on the lawnmowers for this type of grass. And that
this
review I trust.
this is why companies sign the face of their company when Nike brings on a Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
as opposed to the Michelin Man, which is fine. Mickey Mouse, it's fine, but it's not a real person. I think it's people connect with people, and to your point, Dan, there's a human element of trust there when you want to see a face of a real person, as ugly or unkempt or whatever, but you want to know that you're dealing with a person.
So that will I think you're right that will be a trend of something that companies can do to continue to build trust to zag while everybody else zigs, right?
But it presents a problem. When I was back in finance and I was becoming a LinkedIn name and writing, the companies didn't like having not being able to choose the face of their firm. Like there was friction there for me. And the reason I bring that up is because these companies will have to decide who is the face of the firm. Is it the CEO? And what if they leave? Is it the marketing team? Like, it's easier to control an artificial AI avatar.
Yep.
There's not going to be a dispute over financing. I don't know. Like, it's going to become an issue for companies, but video is important. That's not going to go away. It's going to become more the case.
I do think there's something there for creating a mascot of sorts.
I do
I
too.
think you can win by going authentic in building a founder brand or picking subject matter experts or doing even what like Dave Ramsey or the Daily Wire doing is diversifying away from Ramsey and Shapiro and having lots of personalities or ways it's played out. But I think there's something about creating, and I'm trying to do it myself, but I haven't gotten my custom GPT to be consistent enough. But I am trying to come up with a personality of like a little robot head that has a consistent personality and is just like, you think of like Wendy's and it's just like constantly roasting people. Like,
Mhm.
what if you created a personality and even on video and it
I
has like
love it.
consistent take, that's unique and fun, and then you develop it over time and maybe it starts going on some journeys, and then that's kind of interesting IP to build, and it's way easier to do with AI soon because it's getting closer and closer to be able to build consistent characters in something like Mid Journey or in video in the future.
So for the marketers out there, all the writers will recognize the term personification, right? When you assign human qualities to an inanimate object, that personification of companies is going to happen because of this AI capabilities. These companies will have to decide. This isn't fluff like what's our mission and you staple it to the wall. They have to decide for business purposes, what's the personality of the firm?
Yep.
Literally the voice, male or female. Like literally, what does it look like? If you think about Mr. Beast, Jimmy Donaldson's face is famous. Everyone knows him.
Yep.
There is a Mr. Beast logo. It's like a tiger or whatever it is, but that's not what's on his YouTube thumbnails. It's him.
Yep.
So these companies will have to have the logo, the name, and a face. And so, Dan, I think you're ahead of the curve on this one. Sonic branding is another one. What's the sound of the company?
Right.
The da 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 from McDonald's or whatever. Like, companies need to start it, because in a content-driven world where we've reached now, there's no more excuses. The tools are there, but B, you need to have a strategy in place that people can say, yes, I recognize right away that's a Sanchez thing, right? AI in the sky or whatever. Or I
Yep.
recognize the logo and I know the face attached to that logo. It's important when Apple has the icon with the bite of the apple missing from it, but you kind of know Steve Jobs' face is, and Steve isn't even around anymore, but you still associate that. Or Walt Disney. Everyone knows what Walt looks like, even though he's holding the hand of a fake mouse. Like, that's where we're headed. And so companies in the marketing department especially will lead the charge. What do we want to do that's going to represent this firm's in audio, video, and text?
Man, I think just doing a combination of these things, having some sincere, genuine personalities, having some made up personas that you can have some fun with.
Are you familiar with Aitana? Have you heard of this?
No.
She's an AI generated Spanish supermodel. 20,
Oh, the Instagram model.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
And she gets hit on all the time by famous celebrities in Europe. She's not real,
yeah,
but and she's making something like $25,000 a month. The thing is, there's a face there, and people know it's fake, but
yeah.
there's a face. That's why if Aitana was a robot Aitana, it wouldn't be the same. So
Right.
I think these companies have to start thinking about the psychology behind. Like, there's tech and the tools are great, but there's another element here.
Gosh, that's interesting. I'd be more afraid as a company to put out something that looked human. I'd almost want to run in the other direction and cartoonify it or make it a robot or
I
make
think
it
initially,
something not human, because I think especially when you start going into video and it's not a real video as a mascot, I'm like, at least in the short term, I think that's dangerous for companies, and
I
the
agree
PR
with you.
problem of that, I'm like, it's easier if it's a mouse.
In the early days of advertising, you had the Marlboro Man and Ronald McDonald,
Yeah.
but you also had like Mickey Mouse, and
Yep.
that's a lot safer if because it's non-human. So I
Yep.
think that you're right. I would come up with, at least at this point, with something that's not a very specific human thing. But I think ultimately it still needs to have a voice. It needs
Yes.
to have there needs to be a personality attached. That's the
Yep.
word. It's a
Yeah, it'll
personality.
have all the human attributes without actually pretending to be human. Because I
Right.
think that's the thing that people get nervous about with AI. Of course, that's going to blow up where it is realistic, and we'll have weird relationships with these AI video looking things. And I'm like, I don't. That's part of the
Yeah.
AI. Then I'm like, let that come when it comes, because I'm not ready to talk about it
Right.
yet.
Right. From a marketing perspective, I think that this is something companies should be thinking about.
Yep. So this was fun. Hopefully, if you're listening, give us some feedback. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Talk to Mark. Did you like this format? Do you like what we covered? How about the name? AI in the Sky. If you don't hear anything, I'm going to do it again. And we'll see how it goes. But this, I'm hoping to make a reoccurring segment. But I want to drive it. I'm building it in public. Let's drive it with some feedback. So let us know.
Yeah, quick behind the scenes, the building in public thing. I said to Dan off record, I was like, "This is a great approach because people want to know. No one knows. It's like we're willing to put ourselves out there, and we'd love the feedback. If you guys have any kind of insights, it would help us help you."